I find it fascinating watching grand designs. The buildings and people stories that are featured are not your everyday renovators doing their extensions or package homes. They're on the show because they have a sense of vision. They're caught by an idea that has already demanded their commitment before being on the show. Usually they've determined to invest their life savings in their dream home, and often they redesign their current lives in order to make it happen. As their stories unfold, we see the ongoing sacrifices they make, physically, emotionally, financially. As the building progresses, the personal investment increases, sometimes becoming all-consuming. We see foundations grow into frame and then become shape. We see plumbing and utilities, insulation and design features. We see details. We see frustrations and obstacles being addressed and overcome. Eventually, we come to the reveal. We get to visit the completed build, a shiny, beautifully presented, designed, magazine glossy home. There are comments about how successfully the vision has been realised. The story of the journey is justified by the end product. As the picture recedes, we are left with the hope that this is indeed the owner's own little slice of heaven. We hope they spend their days living there in peace. After all, they've earned it. Like the joy of seeing a mother nursing a child, we're confident that the trials of pregnancy and the pain of birthing will be forgotten in the new focus that comes with the reality of new life. Of course, the story has not ended with the building of the house or the birth of the child. In both cases, the new life has only just begun. So it is with the promise of new life and the new realm of heaven. When we recognise and follow Jesus, the story does not end with the proclamation of a title. Whatever we name Jesus to be, we need to consider how we then respond to this Jesus. If Jesus is king, what kind of subjects are we? If Jesus is friend, how do we invest in the friendship? If Jesus is the shepherd, how do we respond to his call? And if Jesus is healer or rabbi and bread of life, how are we open to healing, learning, and nourishment? Some Bible commentaries suggest it is likely that the Hebrew text was actually a sermon that was reformed into a letter to comply with the style conventions of the day. In it, we hear the preaching about a once and for all Christ who is more than simply a priest carrying the blood of sacrifice into the holy place. Rather, he is described as the one who carries the story of all humanity in all its brokenness, and he brings it into a state of promise. The promise being that sin is already dealt with by his life, death, and resurrection. And the future salvation is in his coming again and will involve a whole new way of being. We're cast among those who will eagerly await him. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis put the waiting like this: if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Of course, there is a danger that in being so future-focused, we fail to attend to the present. But we're not exhorted to simply wait passively and patiently. Rather, the eagerness of the waiting suggests some energy and passion. Just as the promise of a completed build motivates the owner-builders on grand designs, the promise of heaven should be motivating us to invest in heavenly outcomes in our here and now. The Church has a clear calling to be the community that points towards heavenly things by offering a foretaste of what is to come. To do that, we need to pour ourselves into lived and demonstrable experiences of heaven that are visible, inclusive, active, and relevant. Those Eastwood Uniting Church values of visible, inclusive, active, and relevant come into their own right now. How? Our visibility does not increase if we enter the building and then close the doors behind us. Our visibility increases when we are seen and known in the wider community. Putting the photo board up of leaders just before lockdown was part of a strategy to increase visibility to the users of the building. People who came in immediately commented that they could now see there was a community of people who belonged with the site. Eastwood Uniting Church became more than a convenient building for them. Our signage and garden are visible. But what about the people? When things are consistent and tidy, people take them for granted. They become part of the scenery, the landscape. Becoming more visible needs to involve doing activities outside, decorating for the seasons, catching people's eyes by colour, movement and novelty. Will it be ribbons or lights, decorations or groups of people? We need to get inventive and try some things out. Our value of inclusion is not helped by entering into a space where only some people can go. This has been a huge struggle for us. Some can only be included by being online. Even now, those who are double vaccinated may still have underlying health conditions that place them at too great a risk to gather with others in larger numbers. A handful of people cannot be included online. While we will work hard to encourage, coach and journey with those who have struggled with digital technology, we're mindful that hearing clearly and seeing clearly is challenging. Those who cannot get online at all will be the first priority for trying to get into the church building safely. But being visible to one another is only a step towards being the visible and inclusive church for the community. Our smaller group gatherings in public spaces can be of great value here. Yet if we don't have something that declares who we are, how visible are we really? Trying to be visible is why I sometimes wear my clerical collar or my name tag or a t-shirt with a red dove on it. Having some signage on the tables around which we gather can work at the cafe or the club or the park. How do we let people know who and what they are seeing? Visibility and inclusivity are not just physical. Once upon a time, people would see the exterior of a church and the people going in and out and would consider visiting. Today, 98% of visitors to churches have looked at their website or Facebook page first. Our ood, or witness, is to claim the promise of heaven in the here and now. Our ood, or representation to the world, needs to be visible and inclusive, physically and virtually. And this brings us to the third value, to be active. How can we be active in this new, strange world? The COVID lockdown time has pushed much of our society into online communications. During the last 2 years, people have learnt to rely on web pages, YouTube and social media for information and social connection. It provides us with the greatest opportunity for sharing hope and compassion that we have had in the last 50 years. If you get the weekly email from the office, you will see a built-in link to our resources page. It's on the website. If you click on it, you have access to the order of service, the notices, service highlights on video, and a playlist of all the week's music. If you're on social media, you can share the links with others. If you're on email, you can forward the email to others. Ood, bearing witness and sharing with others, has become instant. If you're already comfortable online, witnessing and telling others about God and God's community has never been easier. Yet, we hesitate. We think people will not welcome our comment or link or sharing. But you're not being asked to share everything. Pray first for courage and discernment, and then share something that has been meaningful for you. Introduce your sharing by saying, "This week I found this thing thought-provoking." If you're not confident or comfortable being online, the church can help. In 2022, we'll be doing free classes and individual coaching to help people become more digitally confident and more meaningfully connected. We'll help you to get set up at home so that you can connect with others as easily online as you can use your phone or your TV. Don't worry about feeling stupid. The only reason I can teach others about technology is because I've made just about every mistake possible and felt stupid too. Be not afraid, be of good courage, be part of this learning and growing community. We don't want to leave anyone behind, and we're constantly looking for ways of helping people function more easily in this complex environment. Because gathering in large numbers indoors will carry risks, we're starting our gatherings outside in smaller groups. It's more intimate and a bit more casual and hospitable. It also makes it easier to invite someone to come with you. During the last 2 weeks, Graham Horrocks and Michelle Loxton and I installed 2 large umbrellas in the courtyard area on the western side of the church. We have our own Grand Designs vision, a beautiful, sheltered, sacred gathering place where we can share faith and life. It's my hope that in community, we will nurture hope in one another by sharing God's promises and bearing witness to how faith shapes our lives. We learn to do this one story at a time. The Monday night book group that's been meeting online has been a delight to be part of. We have read some of the story of author Rachel Held Evans and her struggles with the Bible. We talk about our own struggles and stories. We talk about the Bible stories. We encourage one another, and we come away with laughter and friendship. The concept of microchurch network is where a church community is made up of a lot of smaller discipleship and interest groups, and these smaller groups are the main way church people gather. These groups are also the main way that people are invited into community. Worship gatherings, both online and in person, supplement and network the microchurches. COVID considerations certainly make this the safest way for us to proceed, but there are other reasons too. If we want to connect with people in our wider community, the most welcoming and least threatening opportunities will come with smaller groups who can adapt and adjust to respond to the presenting needs and interests of members of the group. This is where the last of our 4 values comes in: to be relevant. Being relevant is not about asking others to conform to our habits of thinking and acting, but adapting to express and explore faith in ways that are meaningful for others. John 14:2 says, "In my Father's house there are many rooms." The diversity promised in that heavenly grand design should be shaping our present offerings for being part of this church community. We should be sharing our faith with one another in more than one way, and we should be connecting with others in more than one way. Researchers have long said that people respond to a personal invitation from someone they know or who they've interacted with. They will usually only respond to an unsolicited notice or advertisement if they see it in at least 3 different ways and if it is directly relevant to an already identified need or desire that they have. It is not enough for us to advertise or put up notices. The only way to tell the good news of God is for us to make direct contact. In the next few weeks, you will receive invitations to Christmas carols to share with others. The Christmas carols will take place across the road from the church at Eastwood Oval, outdoors. Please invite people, but let them know who you are. I'm your neighbour, and you would be welcome at these community carols. Or, it's your auntie here. Have you planned on attending a carol service this year? Or, it's about time we caught up. How about coming to an outdoor carols? It promises to be a little bit of shared heaven for those of us who have been in lockdown for so long. It's also a time when we can witness to the good news of Jesus Christ. We can tell the good news.